I was overreacting, and I'm usually so open-minded about.
Hey, check it out. I dressed up for you. Well, I dressed up. I was already dressed up. Don't get used to it. Had Zoom thingies. So I saw this video, and there are other people who have addressed other parts of it. But the part that I would like to address is we thought you were so open-minded. So this guy has been working out with a white friend for a while. Guy shows up in a Blue Lives Matter shirt. He doesn't say anything about it. Guy goes out to his truck one day, discovers a big, back the blue flag, right? And he's like, "Look, you're a great person. We don't have to talk about it, but I don't want to work out with you anymore." And his friend's response was, "I thought you were more open-minded than that." And then somehow this conversation became general gym conversation. Like it wasn't just between the two of them, because now other people at the gym are telling him, "Oh, we thought you were more open-minded than that." Now, I would love to believe that the brother decided, that maybe I'm wrong and I should, ask the people at the gym. But I've seen enough white freakouts that I will still hold space for that possibility. But I've seen enough white freakouts to understand that it is very likely that his friend had a bit of a freak out and started asking for other people's input. Here's the thing. I am focused on we thought you were more open-minded than that, because I want to talk a little bit about what it takes for sometimes, especially if you are if you are in predominantly white spaces, what it takes to be the Black friend. Story time. I had a friend I still have a friend. She's still my friend. I still adore her. But when she was dating her boyfriend, he and I had some disagreement, not important, that we never ever discussed. And instead of discussing that, he started making racial jokes. "Oh, watch your wallet. There's that black girl's here." And he would do this in front of her, and she wouldn't really say anything. Um, I asked him to stop. We went on it. I remember the last joke he told. We were on our way to San Francisco to see a show. He's driving. He calls my name and waits for me to pay attention, then tells the racist joke in front of everybody in the van. And she still really didn't say anything. I had to invoke the experience. I had to call him up later and invoke the experiences of my father and grandfather in order for this young man to understand that it wasn't okay for him to make those kinds of jokes. And I was embarrassed by myself as well that I'd let it go on so long. I'm betting that some of your white friends thought that you were so open-minded. And this is no shade at all, because this is just what it takes to have white friends, especially if you're in a predominantly white space. They're going to do things, they're going to say things, they're going to look to you to see, okay, so how are they reacting? And then that becomes their excuse next time someone comes to them and says, "Hey, don't do that." They're like, "Well, I have black friends and my black friend is fine with it. In fact, this guy actually tried that with me. Hey, I grew up around black people. I'm not a racist." It's a lot. And for you and I, we understand what it means to have police interactions and have them go badly. We understand what it means to be afraid when you see a police officer. We understand what it means to experience that corruption of security the first time you discover that the person who you're told, in school, you're in trouble, ask a policeman, is not necessarily safe for you. Now, I loved policemen when I was a little kid. I remember I decided to walk home from school walk home from school to my babysitter's house, and I got completely lost. I was like, I don't know, 6. And yeah, police officer pulled over, asked me if I was lost, and I didn't think I was. I just couldn't find her house. And so he picked me up, put me on top of his briefcase in his car, and he drove me around until he found the house. And so I always had, like, I just thought policemen were the best thing in the world. And then one day, I'm in the car when one pulls my dad over. Now, my dad is ex-military. He's not a shrinking violet. And I was a little worried that he was going to hurt that police officer's feelings. But what I was completely unaware of in my very young mind was the situation that my dad was looking at. This guy came in hot. He came in with a lot of attitude, a lot of disrespect, and that situation could easily have gotten out of control. And I watched my father do the calculus of having his wife and his 2 young children in the car and make himself small in order to appease this man's need to dominate him. To me, my dad had been Superman up until that point. He had been the guy he was the guy who was scarier than the monsters. And I never saw him the same way again. I don't care. This is not political at all. It's personal. Your friend was well aware over the summer of George Floyd. Any white person who wasn't living under a rock understood why Black people have some ambivalence about the police sometimes. And hey, I had 3 cousins that are police officers. I have one who still is. And he knew, and I'm betting you, that was the last push. That was okay, I've done this. He was okay. I've done that. He seemed to be okay. Now let me put on my Blue Lives Matter shirt so that I can see how in solidarity with this Black man I can really be. And I cannot tell you that you should not have been, quote, open-minded. Because honestly, in a lot of situations, having white friends means not being open-minded, but being willing to swallow things that your grandparents would be ashamed to see you swallow. And all of us struggle with that line. Do I make a fuss about this? Is it really that big of is this big enough of a deal? But then when you found your line, suddenly everybody's ready to gaslight you and tell you that there's something wrong with you because you decided on a standard of what was comfortable and acceptable to you. You didn't say the guy had to leave the gym. You didn't call him a racist. You just said, I don't want to work out with you anymore. Why was that not okay? Because he didn't want to look at you as a Black man. He wanted to believe that he could have a Black friend and not acknowledge their Blackness in any way that mattered. And I am really sorry for that. I'm sorry that you had to go through it. I'm sorry that you had to make the accommodations that you did make in order to keep him as a friend for as long as you did. And I'm sorry that it wasn't enough for him. And I'm sorry it wasn't enough for the people in the gym to just let you be. So, white folks, if you have Black friends, think about what you're doing.